Welcome to Pregnant with Promise. I'm your host, Alexis. Okay, I need to tell you guys something. Before we get all into this story, I want to let you know that 8 months ago, I stood in a place of deep expectation. I thought I was close. I thought I was in the final stretch of a promise that God had spoken over my life. A promise about love, about restoration, about the man I believed God is calling my kingdom spouse. I thought I was 8 months pregnant. And if you watched the last episode, then you know. See, I thought I was almost at delivery, but what I didn't know then, that I'm starting to understand now, is that what I thought was labor was actually reconception. God wasn't bringing the promise forth just yet. He was reforming how I would carry the promise. Because sometimes what feels like the end is actually the very beginning. See, the promise hadn't died, God hadn't changed his mind. He was simply doing what it says in Isaiah 43:19. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? And what I didn't understand then is what I understand now. Sometimes when a promise seems delayed, it is not because it's denied. It is because God is reforming the vessel that must carry it. Okay, so now let's get into it. In Matthew 9:17, it says, "Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins burst." See, God wasn't withholding a promise from me. He was making me into a new wineskin. One where I can hold the actual assignment, where I can handle the promise without bursting. So God revealed to me that I was pregnant with a promise. Not a real baby, just a theoretical baby. And the baby is the promise. So I'm going to give you week by week, segment by segment, stories of my pregnancy journey. So we're going to start off with the hidden first trimester. This is August, September, October. This is when invisible reformation is happening. And it's super fragile during this time, this stage of an early promise. And I'm basically learning to protect what God is forming before the world even knows. And just because no one else sees it doesn't mean it isn't real. All right, let's get into it. Week one is our ovulation moment. So for me, this was July 31st. So to give you a little insight, I'm going to be going through my different journal entries. So crazy enough, before God even told me I was pregnant, I was journaling my surrender. And I labeled each month week this, week that, week one, week two. And then by like week four, God told me pregnant with promise. And it wasn't until months later that I come to realize that, oh my gosh, like pregnancy is counted in weeks. And I was already writing my journals in weeks. No coincidences, but just crazy honorable mention. Okay, so July 31st, confirmation before conception. In natural pregnancy, before there's even a baby, before there's a test to take, there's ovulation. See, something is shifting inside the body. Quietly, decisively, you don't see it, you might not even feel it, but the conditions for life are suddenly present in a way there weren't before. That was July 31st for me. On this day, I was desperate, y'all, and I was just honest with God about how I was feeling. I cry out to him and I use the entire full name, I'm talking like first, middle, last, of the man whom I believe to be my kingdom spouse. And I asked God plainly, is it really him? Or did I misunderstand what you were showing me? I need to know at this point. Not a maybe, not a feeling. I need something that I can hold on to. So I asked God for a sign. In the moment, I'm watching cars outside the window at work, and I asked God to confirm my kingdom spouse through a maroon car. But then I second guessed myself almost like immediately because there's already so many maroon cars. So that feels a little too easy. So I changed it up and I asked God for a yellow car. And this color car I genuinely never see. And I know they say if you're thinking about a yellow car, you see a yellow car, but I really don't be seeing yellow cars. So, I'm just gonna go for it. And then I get back to my workday, and honestly, I forgot about this moment that I had. And I just kind of let it go. And then on my way to my next destination after work, a few blocks away, God reminds me, hey, you asked for a car. I'm like, oh, yeah, I was not even paying attention, but you're right, I did ask. And God kind of gives me like a little heads up, hey, pay attention. And in that moment, I look up, and right there in my rear view mirror is a yellow car. Like it's right behind me as I'm at the stop sign. So I pull out my phone, I have it on selfie mode, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, y'all, there's really a yellow car. Like, this is crazy. And mind you, I didn't tell anyone else, but I'm like, I'm gonna tell somebody now because God just answered me, like, what? So as I'm recording in my selfie camera, like, oh my gosh, there's a yellow car, I notice that there's another yellow car. And then with that other yellow car parked beside that other one is a maroon car, the color that I was originally gonna ask. So mind you, like I said, I wasn't looking for a yellow car. Like, oh, you gonna see it because you're looking for it? No, I had drove past a yellow and maroon car parked on the side street, kept going by, get to the stop sign. God's like, hey, you're supposed to be looking for cars. I'm like, oh, snap. Okay. I look up, there's a yellow car in my rear view. I go to take a selfie and peep that there was yellow cars behind me that I already passed. So it was just so crazy to me that I drove past all of these cars I didn't even notice. And basically that God showed me double. Like he showed me two yellow cars, but he also showed me a yellow car and a maroon car, the one that I was originally thinking, and then the one that I asked for. One's parked, one's moving. So I think that was just like God going above and beyond to make it clear and plain to me. And then obviously I have to drive away from the stop sign. I go towards my destination, and then I go to turn the corner, like literally into the block where I'm going to an event at. And there's a maroon Tesla like right in the middle of the road. Like it's blocking the road. And y'all, I've never seen a maroon Tesla. And when I say maroon, I don't mean burgundy. I mean like literally maroon. Like there's a difference. If you know, you know. My high school colors were maroon and white, so I specifically like was originally going to do maroon because of that. And there's a difference. So like I'm really just sitting here shaking like in awe. Like God, like wow, like you showed me double of both things. And again, I'm gonna record this because like again, this is so crazy to me. And when all of this happens, I'm like, okay, breakthrough is about to come. Like these signs must mean that like the manifestation is close because like now I have confirmation. Like I know that I know, or so I think that I know that this is my man. So it's like, okay, God, if this is my man, then like obviously we about to get married like tomorrow because like why wouldn't we, right? So I now understand what I didn't fully understand then, that signs don't always mean delivery, right? Sometimes they just mean, hey, there's movement. And God was confirming something had shifted, but he wasn't telling me like, hey, it's done, it's ready. It was just more so like, hey, I'm beginning to work on this, like this is going to happen. So for me, that was my ovulation. The conditions for new life were present, but conception hadn't even fully happened yet. So now we move on to August 1st, saying yes before you see anything. Now, this is the day everything shifts, not because what I receive, but because what I choose. My kingdom spouse and I commit to 21 days of no contact except for Catalyst, our church's event that's coming up. And I'm gonna be honest, like, this wasn't something that was mutual. It was something that I felt like God laid on me to do. Honestly, I felt like God had been telling me to surrender for a while at this point. And my kingdom spouse, he never wanted to do it. He never wanted to go no contact, but it was just really pressing on me. And even though I felt the resistance from his end, I just really had this like deep settled conviction that like God had told me that I needed to do this, and I had been delaying long enough. So this time I decided I'm not going to negotiate with my obedience. Like I'm going to do what God said. And I said yes to doing the no contact. I said yes to the surrender, even though I knew it was going to cost me something, even though I knew this was not something that he wanted to do, even though I knew that, I wouldn't be able to control him during this time. And even though I couldn't really even fully explain like how I knew God wanted me to do this, I kind of just like had this deep feeling, right? Um, and honestly, I didn't know what was on the other side of my surrender. Little snippet months prior to this. So this is August 1st at this point, but this is August 1st, 2025. But in December ish time frame of 2024, I was like, God, like, I don't know what you want me to do. when I open up my TikTok, show me what to do. And I kid you not, I never heard the phrase no contact before. And I opened TikTok and my whole TikTok feed was like no contact, no contact, no contact. And the crazy thing was, my feed was like engagement rings and wedding planning because I was already of the understanding like this is my man, so like we're getting married, da 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 da. So for my TikTok to do a whole 180 to go to like no contact, it was like very much giving like God's telling me to do this. But like I said, that was like December of 2024, and I still didn't listen. So now here we are, fast forward to August 2025, where I'm like, okay, we've had moments where we did no contact, but it hasn't been like full out. And I kind of want to like go all in and do a set amount of time. So our church had a 21-day fast coming up. I thought like, okay, this is the perfect time to like walk in obedience. We can focus on God during the fast, yada yada. So like I said, I'm doing the surrender. I don't know what's on the other side. At this point, he and I are not in a relationship. We are technically single, even though we're saying, we both love each other. We want to be with each other. But at the end of the day, we want God's best, right? So, similarly, in pregnancy, conception happens when two things are coming together in agreement and there's something new, something that never existed before begins. That's conception. And that's kind of like what we had. Like, even though he was reluctant, we both were in agreement that we were going to do no contact and that I was going to kind of go all in with the surrender and obey. And one thing I learned about delaying your obedience is that it creates a cycle, but when you walk into full obedience, you really dive into whatever God is telling you to do, you're able to break that cycle. So I was like, yeah, let's just break the cycle. No one at this time could see, what was going on. Nothing kind of really looked different on the outside, so to speak, unless you were like really paying attention and realized that, like, oh, they're not in public together as much or whatever. But for us, something irreversible had definitely begun on the inside, especially for myself. There was a lot of emotional, just like change. And I want to even say turmoil because, my flesh and my spirit didn't align, even though spiritually I felt like this was something that I needed to do. In the natural, it was like, oh my God, I love him. Like, this is so hard. So August 2nd, 8 means new beginnings. The next morning, God spoke to me about the number 8. He told me that 8 symbolizes new beginnings, but also restoration and covenant. And y'all, I'm really big on numbers. Like, that's one thing that you'll probably realize throughout this podcast is that like numbers are a big thing to me. So I'm like, okay, it's the 8th month of the year. Like, it's August. I'm 28 years old at the time. I'm like, okay, it's giving 8. And I'm like, okay, again, breakthrough must be around the corner because I seen the cars. It's restoration. It's a new beginning. Like, yada yada, wooty woo, right? So I'm thinking like something's about to happen right here, right now. Again, looking back, I can understand that August wasn't necessarily the breakthrough that I thought it was. It was more like a breakthrough to conceive. And it was a beginning of something new though, but it was just so small, so hidden, so cellular that I mistook it for, something ending, like ending a wait, but it was really the beginning of a deeper wait, a deeper surrender. And in early pregnancy, the first thing that is formed is a cluster of cells. And you can't feel these cells. You can't see these cells. There's no symptom, there's no sign. You don't have a belly yet. Like, you're not showing. It's just this invisible and we hope irreversible beginning. And that was my August 2nd. God was speaking beginnings over me. And I just didn't know like how quietly and how covert that they were going to occur. And I do want to caveat by saying I am not a mother. I've never been pregnant before. So, this is based on research. So I do have like some notes and things about what happens in natural pregnancy. And like I said, God told me that I was pregnant with promise. So I kind of just drew the parallel between natural pregnancy and the pregnancy promise that I was carrying. I'm saying this back to you now in this podcast, but at the time, I didn't have all of these pregnancy symptom parallels. I was able to like go back and make the connections and realize that like, oh, I was going through this and like this is what a real life mom goes through. So it's very cool like being able to put all the pieces together, and it shows how intentional God is, how he spoke that word to me telling me like, oh, you're pregnant with promise, even though I didn't fully understand it at the time. You know, the Bible says, you may not understand now, you do not understand now, but later you will. So yeah, August 3rd, the promise coming twice. So this was Elisha and the Shunammite woman. So God took me to the story of Elisha and the Shunammite woman. The Shunammite woman, she was given a son that she didn't ask for. This child was promised to her, and she wasn't even asking for a son. The prophet came and was like, you're gonna have a son. And she like, don't play with me. He like, nah, you're gonna have a son. And she's like, no, but for real, like I finally got consent. Like I'm ad-libbing a little bit, but she like, I'm finally in a good place. Like, don't get my hopes up. Don't pump fake me. Don't play in my face. And he like, nah, you're gonna have a son. And then she has the son, but then he gets sick and dies, y'all. He dies. And she goes back to the prophet, like, didn't I tell you not to play in my face? Didn't I tell you not to give me false hope? Like, why did you get my hopes up? Telling me I was going to have a son. Then let me get the son and then he died? Like, are you crazy? Because I was fine. Like, I could do better by myself. So, anyways, the way that Elisha responds is what really like hit me during this season. He prayed for the son and he literally lays himself on the child, and then the boy's flesh like it gets warm and he like partially comes back to life, but he's not fully resurrected yet. So Elisha prayed again, put himself on top of the son again, and the second time is when full resurrection occurred. And the boy sneezed 7 times, and then he was able to open his eyes. So it was the same promise, touched twice, prayed over twice, only brought back fully that second time. So, like I said, I don't know if I said this. Yes, I did. So I was journaling throughout this whole time. So something that I wrote in my journal, like based on this story, is that sometimes resurrection power needs to be done alone and twice. What I wrote in my journal here is that sometimes resurrection power needs to be done alone and twice. And the thing is that God can see what's done in secrecy and then he rewards us openly for that. So, like I said, at this time that I'm going through all of this, God's encouraging me to keep the faith. Maybe I need to pray twice. Maybe I need to, seek a little more. But I realized that it was way deeper than that. And in a sense, like God was kind of giving me like a prophetic foreshadowing of everything that I'm kind of going to walk you guys through throughout this podcast. Later that day, I go to church, and this is the first Sunday where I can't talk to him, right? We're on no contact, and it's really like hitting me a lot harder than I expected to, especially because I like saw him across the hall, like talking to another woman, and my mind it just like starts spiraling everywhere. Like every worst case scenario, I'm catastrophizing the situation, like all in 30 seconds. And in the midst of all this, like he noticed me. And even in the middle of, or not even the middle, we're on like day 3 of no contact and we agreed not to talk and everything. He sees like what I'm going through and he breaks no contact enough to like just reassure me, like, hey, I love you. Like, nothing's going on with me and this girl. Like, I know how you can get, but like, I'm here for you. And honestly, I needed that day. And like I said, I didn't realize exactly how hard this surrender was going to be. So we're like, okay, you know what? When we started this, we put in like a cheat day. So we're like, this is gonna be our cheat day. And I think we had one other one, which I think we specifically reserved for Catalyst. Because it was Catalyst at the arena, so we already had pre-purchased tickets. So we're like, we gotta go to Catalyst. So we're like, might as well just have 2 cheat days just in case something goes awry, and it did. Okay, so we just hang out for the rest of this day, And before we hang out, I literally just like pray that God gives us peace. Like, I'm like, I don't want no arguments, like nothing. And God answered my prayer, and we actually had a deep conversation that day. There wasn't like tension between us, no chaos. And that just like really showed me that even in my weak moments, even when my flesh like is wants to do right but is really struggling, like God shows up for me, but also that I can still like carry out my assignment. Like I don't get to just abandon my assignment because I'm going through a weakness. Like I have that moment, I live through it, and then I get back to it. So we had this day, and then we got right back to no contact. And in pregnancy terms, this is probably like fertilization, right? Like life exists, but there's not a heartbeat yet. There's not really any proof, but there's like this quiet certainty that something has begun. Now, on to August 5th, sovereignty changes everything. So, during the fast, one of the revelations I got like really unlocked something inside of me that I didn't even know was locked. And it helped me like really understand that you can have so much faith and still say, even if God doesn't, he's still good. And we see this in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're like, God's gonna save us from this fire, but even if he doesn't. And I started to like learn to have that type of faith that like God promised me this. God like gave me the cars, like this is my man. But at the same time, surrender is saying like even if he's not, God is still a good God. Even if we never get back together, God is still a good God. And that is the essence of surrender, like in its fullest form. Not, I'm going to trust God because God is going to do what I want, but God is so good that if he does it or if he doesn't do it, that I can still trust him, I can still love him. And God, like, just kept laying sovereign on my heart and my path. Like I would hear videos about it, and I just decided like I'm gonna go really look it up and like do some research, and that's how I like really found out what sovereignty means and kind of like gave language to what I was experiencing. So sovereign means that God in his omniscience has already accounted for your free will, for your mistakes, for your detours, for your delays. He's already factored in every choice that you're going to make and the choices that even other people are going to make. And unless you like completely harden your heart against God, he is still going to lead you to his original promise. And so that is my belief that the sovereignty of God is that when he gives you a promise, he accounts for everything else that's going to take place, and the promise still stands. I do understand that we have free will, and I feel like within our free will, we can delay God's promises, but I don't think that we can destroy a promise from God. Like, it's one thing if God is like, do this, and there's no if and, but if he's like, I promise you this is going to happen, and there's no caveat on it, then it's going to happen. And God already knows every mistake you're going to make, every detour you're going to take, and it's still going to come to pass. There's sometimes in the Bible where God says, do this and then you will get that. And if you don't do that, then you won't get that. But there's other times when God just speaks a word. And regardless to what you do, like what he spoke and what he promised still is going to come to pass. It's just a matter of how you receive it, the process that you go through, the timing that it takes. All of those things are dependent upon you. And I think about God as our positioning system, right? A GPS, God's positioning system. It's like a GPS is always like rerouting, rerouting, rerouting. And I feel like as long as you stay in a heart posture of surrender, God is constantly like rerouting, rerouting, rerouting. So it might take you longer because you keep going on detours or making wrong turns or missing exits, but your destination is still the same. Like the Bible says, for I know the plans I have for you. So like the plan that he has is still his plan. You might just take a little longer getting to it, but the plan is the plan. If the plan is you're going to Virginia, you're gonna get to Virginia. It just might take you a while. Um, so like I said, sovereign is just like really heavy on my heart this day. Um, and I kind of like get anchored in God's sovereignty. I take root in the fact that God is a sovereign God. And um, yeah, I take root in the fact that God is sovereign. And for me, this is like the implementation phase. And in pregnancy, implantation is the moment that the fertilized egg attaches to the wall of the womb. And before this, the embryo is just floating along, it has potential life, it's moving, but it's not secured. Implantation is what is going to like hold it together. That's when it becomes anchored. So for me, August 5th, learning about the fact that God is sovereign, like what that looks like for me, that is kind of like what anchored me through everything. So not only is the promise conceived, but now it's like secure, it's anchored in me. Next, August 8th, reconnection revealed my capacity. Okay, so remember I said we already put in a cheat day for Catalyst. So August 8th is Catalyst, which, as you know, like I said, eights mean a lot to me. So I'm like, oh, it's the eighth day, it's the eighth month. Like, it's lit. I'm 28. And so, God told me eight means new beginnings. So I'm like, it's on like Dong Chong. And since this is our like official cheat day, right at midnight, my kingdom spouse, he calls me, literally wakes me up out of my sleep, and honestly, the old me showed right up. I had all these anxious questions. I needed all these answers that he didn't even have. I was going on a spiral that I thought, like, okay, I got past this. Like, I spiraled at church on Sunday. Now I'm locked in when God is just me and him. I know about his sovereignty. Like, and then I'm still spiraling again. And like I said, this was at midnight. So obviously we go to sleep. And then later that day, I kind of wake up and I'm really sitting with like what happened. And I'm like, dang, like, I really was not expecting to respond in that way. And I'm realizing that I'm not ready yet. Like, I'm really not ready for this promise yet. And that was crazy for me because this whole time I was kind of like, oh, he's not ready, but I never realized that, like, sis, you're not ready either. Like, what are you doing? So it didn't make the promise any less real, but again, like the wineskins, I couldn't contain it yet. I couldn't sustain a promise of this weight yet. So it wasn't time. And I feel like God kind of allowed us to touch the edge of the promise, maybe, but not give it to us fully, just to reveal to us that, like, you're not ready yet. Like, your inner vessel cannot hold all of this yet. And I feel like that night, God just showed me that I still have space to grow. I still have capacity that needs to be built upon. I still have walls that need to be strengthened, if you will. And instead of like running away from this, I made a decision that, like, I'm really gonna go all in. Like, after Catalyst, after this cheat day, like, we need to do full no contact. We need to fully surrender. Like, no more cheating, no mess ups, no half measures, because me having a desire to be a wife was not the same as me being ready to be a wife, and it was showing up week one of surrender. We only been surrendering for a week at this point, and I'm already like just all over the place. And I feel like that kind of just opened my eyes to a lot. So now, August 12th is the language of formation. So this becomes a really defining spiritual day for me. I sit, I slow down, and I really make sure I hear from God. And what I feel like God is giving to me are like just truth upon truth, like one after the other. I feel like God is lining the walls of my heart, if you will, like the way a uterus lines itself to receive what's about to come. And something that I felt like God was telling me is that, what I wrote in my journal is that God, okay, God does not subtract unless He plans to multiply it. So I have to let things die in order for God to revive them. And delay is not denial, it's development. And I felt like God was telling me that I have to pray instead of panicking, worship instead of worrying. There's a prayer, and then there's a process, and then you get the promise. Or some people say a promise, a problem, and then the provision. And as I feel like, God is speaking this to me, I'm writing it all down. And like, this is not like just some quote that I had found. This is like really what I felt like God was speaking into my spirit. And like it's just really hitting me. So I'm really thankful that like God slowed me down enough to kind of like sit in his presence and hear from him. And this is what I would call womb language. It is God lining the interior of my heart, making space, preparing a place for whatever it is that he's forming that's going to take root and grow. And because, as you know, the womb doesn't just carry your baby, but it prepares for a baby long before you even have the baby. It's thickening its linings, it's creating an environment, and it's doing invisible work. And I feel like that's kind of where May 12th left me at. And I said May 12th, I meant August 12th, I'm sorry. Moving along to August 13th, I met with a spiritual mentor, and she told me some things that I really needed to hear, regardless if I was ready for it or not. And she was really just telling me that I have to stop striving so much and really surrender. And this was hard because I'm like, I am surrendering. I'm trying. Like, I truly like am still to this day, like really learning how to fully surrender. And I think it's an ongoing like life process, honestly. Um, but one thing that she really instructed me to do was to examine my own fruit, not just his fruit, but my fruit. And she kind of like held up a mirror for me. And I was like, like I'm not loving, the way that I'm showing up, the way that I've been moving. And one thing that was highlighted was my double mindedness. I would say like I'm surrendered, but then I would like check his location because we were still sharing locations even though we were no contact. And I would say I trust in God. God told me this. I'm gonna believe him. But then I would catastrophize and be like, oh my God, he's with another girl already. Like. So I was saying God promised me this, and I believe God. But then the things that I was doing like didn't match that. So I got to a place where I was like, okay, I'm going to fully let go of everything. Because if God really said this, then I don't have to grip it, I don't have to hold it. I can be open for whatever God has to do. I can be open to being, incorrect. I can be open to receiving restoration. Like I want to be open for whatever. Um, and I also just want to like protect my heart. So I downloaded a dating app. We're on no contact. He's out here doing what he wants to do. We're surrendered. I don't have to just like hope for this one person, even though I do feel like God gave me that revelation. Like I said, I could be wrong. In a sense, this was me taking a deeper level of surrender. I know that God can't pour new wine into old wineskins. Just like a natural womb, there must be stabilization before implantation can hold. Whereas a destabilized womb rejects what's trying to root. And I had really just been destabilizing myself with all the double mindedness, all the back and forth, and the confrontation from my mentor, holding up that mirror, like telling me, I have to be rooted in what I believe, even though it hurt in that moment, it was a form of grace. And saying, like, again, like, do you really fully surrender? Like, can you walk away? Can you fully let go? And just trust that what's for you will be for you. So now we're on to August 15th, and I'm learning about what surrender really means. Like I said, it's a slow process. This whole journey is about learning to surrender, and I'm still learning. And one of the things that I learned is that it's trusting that God is good regardless of the outcome. It's releasing your grip on the how and the when and the who, even, and holding on to just what God says. For August 15th, one of the things that I wrote in my journal is to balance surrender and faith. You just trust who God is without needing to know what He's doing in this season. So, after I was able to really acknowledge this and sit with this in my heart, I got like a little sweet little, I call it like a God wink. And I noticed that my Kingdom Spouse actually left a comment for me in our shared album. And for me, at this time, I'm still like very stringent on the no contact. So I didn't respond back, but it was just cool for me to see that, like, on the day where I felt like I'm really full in with the surrender, like, I'm going to trust in who God is, and I'm going to release outcomes, and I'm going to be open for it to go any kind of way. Like, that's kind of like the day that God like gave him back to me in this, this small way, but it meant a lot to me. Um, and I actually didn't respond back to him because we only had like not that much time left. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna like hold this in my heart. I realized that surrender is always going to be tested after you declare it. And boy, do I get tested. So, one thing about the body in early pregnancy is that it's going to spend weeks adjusting to what's going on inside of your body. Your hormones shift, your systems are recalibrating, and the adjustment isn't glamorous. It is invisible, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And I'm adjusting. I'm adjusting to something that I'm carrying that I don't even see yet. Okay, August 17th, the night everything broke. This morning started off with so much faith. I go back through my journal entries from when we first got together in 2023. I read about how it was hard then too, how people were against us, how we did do a season of no contact before even becoming official, how I even saw him with another woman at church and spiraled and thought the worst back then, but it turned out to be nothing. And I was just remembering like it all worked out in the end. We ended up in a beautiful, loving relationship. God gave him a new job. He ended up living like super close to me because of it. We traveled everywhere. Like the things that I feared would happen, all those worst case scenarios, like they didn't happen. And reflecting on this really was an encouragement to myself. And then that day at church, my pastor preached something that kind of mirrored exactly what I've been feeling. And honestly, I just felt like I was getting confirmations back to back to back. And my faith is like so high this day. But then that night, that night I see it, there is a video posted online of his campus, and he is in the front row. In the front row, y'all. Me and him never even sat in the front row together. He is in the front row next to some other woman. And based on history of this woman, based on what I know, what I've observed, my mind doesn't really have to stretch too far to think, what this could mean. And I break. Because in my head, like, I'm like, he's trying to get with that girl, if not already with her. And I'm just crying and crying and crying, like, all night long. Like, it's so bad. I'm so embarrassed. And I'm really hurt in a way that's hard to name. Because it wasn't just that this guy broke my heart, but it was the specific pain of like not being able to even have a conversation with him about it, not knowing like all the details, and like having to sit in the unknown. And then also just knowing that like God, like this is happening because you told me to let go, like you told me to step away. Like why would it get worse? Like this is crazy. Like I'm sitting here trying to trust in you. Like why would something like this happen? I decided to write in my journal. And on this day, it says, I've decided to believe what God said, no matter what it looks like. I'll believe what God said over what He is showing me. And that was an easy decision because, like I said, He never even sat on the front row with me. And that detail, that small, specific detail, like that is really what got to me. Because it was just like, is she getting a better version of him? All the work that I put in, like, is it now manifesting, but I had to step away? Like, did I leave too soon? Like, I was second guessing everything. I even like reached out to a friend, like, can you find out what's going on? She like, girl, you're supposed to be surrendered. Like, no, like, leave it alone. And looking back, I can understand that even though it felt torturous in the moment, that night literally wasn't punishment. It was an excavation. God was enlarging my capacity, Because again, like the vessels that we talked about, the wineskins, you can't carry more than your capacity. So before God filled me up, he had to stretch my capacity. And stretching in your body and the spirit, it's going to feel like breaking. And that's what I was going through. The embryo divides rapidly under pressure in early pregnancy, and the cells multiply through what looks at the cellular level like constant splitting. And that was my heart. It was splitting, and new capacity was forming in the midst of the fracture. August 19th. Do not manufacture what God has delayed. So, the morning after this worst night where I've cried for like literally at least 4 hours straight, I woke up and I'm just feeling a sense of finality, you know? Like, I'm letting this go. I have to move on. Like, I heard God wrong. Like, because ain't no way this is supposed to be my husband. And this man is up here with Shorty. Like, no, ain't no way. And then before I can even like pray about it more, a prophetic word comes in from someone that's super unexpected. And this prophet, he reaches out to me and he sends me a song. And he says, hey, God told me to sing you this. And mind you, he lives in a different time zone. So it was like 4 a.m. his time or something. So I'm like, God woke you up out of your sleep to send this to widow me? Like, me and this man are not close. We don't talk like that. So I'm just like, okay, like, this is really God. And of course, he didn't know what was going on that day unless God told him. So I was just like, okay, let me sit with this. And the message I received from him, like through this song, the lyrics say, follow every rainbow. And as I'm sitting with it, I remember like, first I start like looking into the movie that the song is from, and I'm trying to figure out like what's going on with the characters. Maybe those characters relate to me, and yada yada. And then one of the things that I end up concluding on is that a rainbow is a symbol of God's covenant promise. It's his faithfulness, it's his way of saying, like, I will not forget. So follow every rainbow means follow every promise, follow the promise. And then the prophet goes on to say even more, and he starts talking about Abraham and Sarah and to not rush God's timing, and how impatience can lead to an Ishmael, and how manufacturing what God has delayed doesn't just create problems, but it delays the original promise even further. And he ended it by saying the promise will still come to pass, but like you don't know the form. Like, you need to seek God for direction on the promise, but know that the promise will still come, but that you can create an Ishmael. And this was like a warning to me. I felt like, okay, this came at a moment where I was about to give up. I was about to be done. I wasn't going to finish the fast, like yada yada. So I'm like, okay, let me stay in 10 toes. And of course, I was so tempted to like call him and be upset and break the contact and to kind of just figure things out in my own strength. But I felt like that would have been like me creating an Ishmael. That would have been me creating a counterfeit version of what I'm believing for God to do, just so that like I have answers, I have some type of tangibility. So in this moment, I was like, okay, I'm not going to create an Ishmael. I'm going to finish out the fast. I'm going to wait till the end. And I think that really just goes to show that not every open door is meant to be walked through. Not every opportunity is a green light from God. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is nothing at all. In an early pregnancy, this is when like the embryo is at its most vulnerable. Any outside interference like stress, toxins, instability, that can disrupt what's forming. And it's the same thing here. Like, you have to protect your promise, and protection isn't passive. Protection is an active, intentional choice to guard like whatever it is that God is growing. August 20th. Doubt doesn't cancel faith. I miss him so much today. I know I was just mad, but now I miss him. And then on top of that, I find out that someone that I know got engaged. And I'm genuinely happy for her. I really am. But it lands so different. Like, it hits different when you're in the middle of believing for the same thing that someone else gets. And this day, I just, like I said, I was missing him. So I just started going through all my favorite old text messages from him. You know how, like, your man say something sweet and you're like, oh, I got to screenshot that. So, like, I have, like, a whole little section of those messages. And I'm, like, reading through them. And I'm just, like, really trying to remind myself, like, you had something real here. Like, y'all really love each other. And, you know, you don't need to doubt that God can restore. Um, but it was hard. And I started questioning myself of whether, like, maybe I didn't hear God correctly. Maybe the cards were just coincidences. Maybe the TikToks were just coincidences. Like, what if I've just been wrong about this whole thing, and this whole time I'm trying to sit here and wait on God, and, like, maybe God's like, girl, I never told you that. Like, you got free will, live your life. So I'm like, you know what? I'm getting on these dating apps. I'm outside because, like, what if I'm missing out on my life based on something that I made up? And this is just doubt talking. And now I know that doubt is how the devil operates. But at the time, I had a lot of doubt. And it wasn't even that I wanted to be with someone else. I want to make that clear, but it was because, like, I just was scared. I was doubtful that I got things wrong. I felt like he was moving on and I was still staying here holding on. And I just needed to grab onto something to make me feel like I could protect myself. And in this case, it was like taking things into my own hand, taking control into my own hands. And it was kind of like well, just in case I heard God wrong, let me have a backup plan. Let me, put myself out there. And I would say, even in the midst of, like, me doubting and, just going into this, like, self protection mode, I still was able to write a journal entry. And it says that if God said it, it will come to pass. And I think that's the beauty of faith, right? Like, my faith was messy. It was bawling my eyes out one night and then hopping on a dating app the next day, but I still had faith nonetheless. Like, even though things weren't looking like what I was believing for, I still had a mustard seed where I was like, oh, God might have said this, and then God will do what he said if he said it. So, I think, like, this relates to how fragile a pregnancy is in the early stages, like when you're at high risk for miscarriage, where your body doesn't look pregnant yet, nobody really knows, there's no evidence of what's going on, like, but there's still life, and God still knows that life, even though you don't physically see anything, even though nothing has changed or moved in this natural, even though you don't have a baby in your hands, there's still life there. August 21st, faith acts before evidence. On this day, something shifts. I pray for him. And not just for him, I pray for that other girl as well, the one that was on the front row with him. And honestly, I just started praying for God's perfect will over the both of them. And if that means I'm not in his life anymore, then so be it. I want God's perfect will. And when I genuinely pray for the both of them, something breaks off of me. The torments of the doubt and the fear, like, it just lifts off of me. And that, like, obsessive need to control things, it starts to quiet. I stop feeling like I need to know everything that's going on, and I start feeling like God got this. God's got this. And then I promise y'all, like, I'm in a good, surrendered, blissful state. Like, whatever will be, will be. I'm praying for them. Whoop-de whoop. And, like, God puts it on my heart to book the Kleinfeld semi-annual wedding dress up. So let's be clear about everything here. I am in no contact with this man that I believe is my husband. We're not together. We don't have a ring. There's been no proposal. He's sitting in the front row with another girl. We haven't talked about me buying a wedding gown at all. And I feel like God is telling me to schedule my wedding dress appointment. Now, the backstory to this wedding dress appointment is that I've tried to attend this sale 3 times before when we was in a relationship. And something prevented me going every single time. Like when I'm telling you I had it booked, I got my mama's train ticket, I got my auntie train ticket, like we all finna go down here, whoop de woo. And every single time, like it just did not pan out. But this time, like when I feel like it was dropped in my spirit to book it, like I just felt a peace about it. And I was excited. So it wasn't hard for me to obey that one. I said, you said, what ain't that? Bet, bet, bet. Now, I did kind of do like the Shunammite woman, and I'm like, don't play with me now. Like, God, don't get my hopes up for nothing. But okay, Lord, if you're telling me to do this, I'm going to do this. So I booked the sale. It's 11:03 a.m. That's important because that same day at 5:01 p.m., the company sent out a public announcement that the sale is going live. It's launching. And God had me book the sale on the same day that the website went live, but before they announced it to the public. So there was no way that it was like, oh, like you saw a newsletter about it, or you got an email, or you saw a video. Like it wasn't even announced yet. I didn't plan this out strategically. Like it was literally a faith move before there was anything public to kind of like tell me to do this. And I feel like God was intentional about that so that when I looked back on it, like it would kind of remove the space for doubt or for me to be like, oh, like this was me putting my hands on it because I hadn't even got the email yet. Like I didn't have like some external force telling me to do this. It wasn't even announced and God told me about it. Like how would I have known the sale had started unless God told me? So I was still mind blown about how he set that up. And it's just like in pregnancy, implantation happens before you get a positive pregnancy test. The life is real before there's evidence. The commitment of the body to the pregnancy happens before you know to look for it. Faith acts before evidence appears. August 24th. Obedience will cost you comfort. Today, I submit paperwork to officially start my ministry. Last month, God gave me the title Wives in Waiting. As I go and I fill out these forms for Wives in Waiting, I start to cry because I'm building a ministry about marriage, something that's rooted in hope. And for me, I'm hoping for restoration, but we're in separation. And I go to set this up, and I'm told that I have to start the group at the new campus that I should be attending, not the campus that I attended with my kingdom spouse. So not only are we in separation, but I have to go to a new campus and launch this new group to women that I don't even know yet. And everything looks like the opposite of what I'm building. And everything in the natural looks like the opposite of like what God is telling me. Like I'm like, God, you're telling me to start this group, but then I'm getting pushed over here. And like, God, you're telling me I have this marriage, but then I'm a wife in waiting. Like I don't want to be a wife in waiting. I want to be a wife. Like, what are you talking about? And I talked to my mom about it, and she tells me something on this day that I kind of am able to carry with me. She says that God knew all of this was going to happen, the different location, you guys being in separation, all of that, when he gave you the instruction to do this group last month. And yet, he still called you to lead this ministry. And honestly, that's everything because it just speaks to that overall theme of God's sovereignty. Like he knows what's going to happen. And he still said what he said. So I'm like, alrighty. God's invitation to build isn't waiting for the circumstances to make sense to me. God's ways are not my ways. And he calls you to ministry when it's inconvenient, when it's uncomfortable, when it's going to cost you something, because the building is part of the formation for you. And in pregnancy, the organs begin forming in the first trimester, before the mother even looks pregnant, before anyone around her can see that there's a change physically. The internal development is real and essential, even when it's completely invisible from the outside. So I'm building, even though Nothing looks like the promise yet. August 25th, having peace without proof. Out of nowhere, I just felt peace. Not surface level peace, not the peace that comes from good news or a resolved circumstance or the promise coming, just like this deep peace, this like settling feeling. The kind that you can't really logically explain, but I feel like God is saying, it is finished. And for the first time, I'm not afraid of if this is the promise, if this is going to happen. For the first time in a while, I'm just curious about when it's going to happen. So much so that I literally tell my dad, like, boldly, like, I'm standing 10 toes, and I'm like, yeah, I still got faith in God. Like, me and this man, like, that's my husband. We're going to get back together. And of course, my dad is gently trying to redirect me towards other possibilities. He like, girl, you might meet somebody at the gym. Go work out. And I'm just looking at him and like, no, I'm just going to keep believing in God, you mean? And that confidence that I was having in that moment, like that wasn't just me. Like that was God. That was him like restoring my faith after I kind of like laid it down and was like, you know what, God, I'm going on dating apps. I'm doing whatever. Like I'm open to whatever. And God kind of like reinstilled in me like, nah, it's okay. It's going to be him. And I would say like that's my heartbeat moment. So in pregnancy, the heartbeat develops around week 5 or 6, which is kind of where I'm at, almost. And you still can't see a baby. There's no belly, there's no movement, no sign that the outside world is going to recognize. But inside, the baby has a heartbeat. That's proof of life. Something that confirms what was unseen and it's very, very real. And the peace that I had internally, like that was my heartbeat moment. All right, August 27th. We getting towards the end of the month, y'all. Okay, growth comes with stretching. Today's August 27th, and this would have been one of our anniversaries. I sit with both things at once today: faith and sadness. Belief in restoration, but grief in the moment. Hope for what's coming, but an ache for what's currently absent. And a quote finds me: God will ask you to surrender the thing that has your heart before he gives you what's in his hand. And that's exactly where I'm at. I have to surrender what has my heart, not yet knowing for sure what his hand is holding for me. I know what I believe, but God hasn't opened his hand yet, so I don't know what is actually given. And something that I'm learning about faith is that it doesn't erase your emotions, right? Like you're still human. So it doesn't take the ache away. It doesn't remove the heartbreak. It doesn't make the anniversaries during no contact feel less lonely, but it really helps anchor you through them. And just like a growing baby stretches everything, it's stretching your womb, it's stretching the skin, your whole body's physical structure is stretching to accommodate this new life. And stretching hurts. And that's not a sign that something is wrong, it's a sign that something is growing. So as I sat in this pain and this stretch on our anniversary, or what would have been our anniversary, I had to realize that it's just a sign of growth. August 28th, preparing for more than you can see. Again, he left a note in our shared album. He said, "Happy anniversary" with hearts, on a day that honestly I was afraid he was going to forget entirely. Like I said, I'm standing 10 toes on this, no context, so I don't respond. But I see it and I notice it. Now, mind you, our anniversary was yesterday, and he wrote it yesterday, but I didn't see it till the next day, which I also think even more speaks to like God knowing that like I was in a surrendered posture, because maybe if I saw it on the actual day of, I would have like been more tempted to say it back, but I'm like, technically it's over at this point anyways. But it means so much to me that he thought about me, that he wrote it. And then I hear God telling me like, dress, order a dress, get a dress. And I go online and I go dress shopping for engagement dresses, and I order me a dress. I'm being obedient, and again, I'm ordering a dress for an engagement to a man that I'm not even in contact with. And it sounds so crazy, but I'm just like, I feel like this is what God's telling me to do. And I'm basically standing for a promise that I don't have any proof on. And I'm doing things and spending money. And again, no proof, but I feel peace. And I'm thinking, like, okay, God is preparing me for this engagement. Um, but actually, He was preparing me for something bigger than I could even imagine. It wasn't just about engagement, it was about marriage. And like I said, I ain't gonna share too much, but just know that God's instructions are almost always bigger than the way we interpret them. His ways are not our ways, His thoughts are not our thoughts, but they're above ours. So we preparing for the step that we could see that makes sense to us right here, right now, but God's like 10 steps ahead of us. And when you're in parenthood, you start nesting, right? And you don't buy a crib because you understand how to be a parent fully yet, but you buy a crib because you're expecting a child and you want to be ready for when it arrives. So even though I didn't know how everything was going to play out, I'm like, I'm going to buy this dress because I'm going to be ready when he pops the question. And I ordered the dress just in faith, even though I didn't understand like how this was going to play out. August 29th, not yet is not no. I check his location before church, an old habit, but I realized that we're about to arrive to Catalyst at the same time. So I reroute. I switch campuses. No longer going to BWI, I'm going to Columbia because we not finna walk into this church at the same time and I mess up and break no contact again. And at this point, like, I don't care that it adds more time to my ETA. Like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to protect the no contact, protect the assignment. Like, I'm committed to it, even though I want to see him so bad. I miss this man. So it was hard, but I do what I need to do. And honestly, even though I did the hard thing, it didn't make the day get easier. There were so many moments that I felt like it was about to be a breakthrough or that I was like right at the cusp of something and then nothing would happen, nothing would materialize. And this was all throughout the day, honestly, leading up to Catalyst even. So all of those like one by one, almost there, but it's not coming to pass, like moments kind of caught up to me. And I just didn't want this to become another one of them. I didn't want to get so close to the promise and mess up on August 29th when it's like maybe at the end of my surrender I was going to have breakthrough. That's how I was seeing it. So I kind of did get in my feelings about just like feeling like I keep getting almost, but never enough. And I gave that to God and I shed a few tears and I went to church and I praised the Lord and it was all good. And honestly, their fall starts in pregnancy. Contractions that aren't really labor, symptoms that alarm but then resolve, moments that feel like this is it, but then it isn't. And the pregnancy doesn't end because of a false start. It keeps going. August 30th through 31st, false labor. The end of August feels like it's building up to something. I started seeing videos about birthing season, y'all, like literal babies, like not promises, like humans. And it's about labor pains and about pushing. And I saw a sign that said baby on board and a pink car, which is a whole nother thing because I asked God for a pink car and he gave me a pink car and then it said baby on board and I was just like, yo, like this is crazy. I felt like I was getting so many messages about like there's going to be a sudden shift, there's going to be a quick change, there's going to be transition, and like everything in my atmosphere was like pointing towards like it's time, da 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 da. And this night I check his location and he's actually like an hour away from me. He's nearby, he's reachable, and now it's August 31st. It's the last night of our surrender, it's the last night of our no contact, from what I understood. So I unblocked him, like, just in case, like, he finna call me or he finna pull up or whatever. But then midnight comes and nothing. No call, no messages, no manifestation from him. I wait up, I watch his location until he gets home safely. And I pray over him, that's all. And I just choose to believe that, Maybe he thought our agreed upon like end of no contact was August 31st, because August has 31 days instead of 30. So like maybe there was a little mix up, and I'm not gonna allow myself to spiral and catastrophize this time. I'm just gonna wait one more day, but I won't pretend like it didn't hurt. And I actually went back and listened to my own podcast that night that I had, the episode before this one. And I re listened to it, and it actually encouraged myself. Like, me encouraged me. And that was like a form of God's grace. Like, even in the silence, God kind of already gave me something to hold on to. And I definitely like cried my eyes out, but it was in like such a soft, surrendered posture. If that makes sense. My mom even told me like my reaction was different than previous disappointments. Um, and that's how August ends, y'all. Not with delivery, not with breakthrough, not with some big revelation, but with silence. And in that silence, in the space between what I believed and what I could see, a promise was still there, invisibly forming. August wasn't delivery, it was actually conception. Okay. I just want to do like a little update. So, looking back on August now, like I said, I've gone through all my journals and I've kind of compiled a summary for you guys, but I want to just sit with y'all for a minute with what I've really learned. So, as you can see, I spent so much of this month trying to calculate the eighth day, I'm 28, da 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 da. Like, just trying to figure out a timeline to it all and decoding signs with the yellow card, the maroon card, da 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 da. And I was trying to figure out what God was doing before He was ready to reveal it to me. Honestly, God still met me there. Like, He really did. He gave me the signs that I was asking for, He gave me the confirmations, even though it was like, girl, I wish you could just trust me. But since you're not there yet, since you need this extra assurance, I'll give it to you because I'm a good father. And, I appreciate that God did that. Um, because none of the process was making sense to me, and I feel like God was just so tender with me in my young faith, in my neediness, in my learning to surrender. You cannot love hard enough to skip the formation stage. The hiddenness of August was not God withholding from me, it was God protecting what was too new and too tender to be fully exposed. There's a reason early pregnancies are often kept a secret during those first few weeks. The life is real, but is vulnerable. It needs to be held close, guarded, allowed to form without the weight of everyone's opinions and questions and timelines. My promise was the same way. I had to learn slowly, tearfully, and perfectly that the silence wasn't absence, the waiting wasn't abandonment, the unanswered midnight wasn't God forgetting. It was the womb doing its hidden work. If you're in your August right now, if nothing looks the way you thought it would, if the signs you received feel distant, if the midnight came and went without your breakthrough, I want you to hear this. You are not behind. You are being formed. What God has spoken over your life has not expired. It has not been revoked. It is not lost. It's in the womb, hidden, held, and developing. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? You may not perceive it yet, but it's springing.